Today I keep my resolution. Hello and welcome to RotD Review of the Day, and today I am taking a look at the 2012 movie Resolution. Where I wound up landing with this movie is I enjoyed the heck out of it. I thought it was a very much better than average movie that was a great mind game. Definitely had some horrific elements to it. Horror, I don't think, was its main point, but it certainly was an apt category. I would say that this was a drama, thriller, horror movie, but definitely a horror movie. But if you are looking for a special effects heavy, blood and guts thrill ride throughout with just slashers and entrails, this is one to pass up. If you want a good character study that has some major twists and turns to it, that with definitely some good scares and horrific elements, then I really recommend this one. And to get into why, let's get into the categories. As always, 4 different categories, each one worth up to 25 points for a total possible score of 100 points. And the plot of this one follows 2 major characters. The character of Chris, who is a junkie that is living in a squalor house in the Badlands, pretty much. He is just completely, he's high all the time, shooting off drugs. He's going full Hunter S. Thompson without the romanticism attached to it, pretty much just slowly killing himself. And then you have the character of Michael, who is a straight-laced man and has known Chris seemingly all of his life, and is giving one last shot at trying to help Chris. So he goes to the squalor house and tricks Chris into basically being in a position where he's handcuffed to some pipes. And Michael is now taking it upon himself to take his drugs away and leave him, supervised, bring him water, bring him food, here's a mattress, things like that. But get him clean. Basically keep him handcuffed to the pipes for 7 days, at which time, Michael's intention was 7 days, and then hand the keys to the handcuffs over, and whatever decision Chris wants to make at that point is now up to him. The Michael believes that the chemicals will be out of the system enough to be able to make a sound judgment at that point. Now, and then that's ultimately where the movie goes, is during this detox period. And then Michael starts just encountering odd characters, encountering odd situations, finding odd things, and what would have been a very dry concept of pretty much just 2 characters in this squalor house, one of which is saying, hey, I want my drugs, and the other one saying, no, you're not going to have your drugs. Ultimately, a very dry concept for stretching that out for an hour and a half. But it managed to keep the pacing going and keep the tempo going and ultimately have a very compelling movie for that hour and a half. They pulled it out well. They had enough interesting elements there that they were able to incorporate that story into that blend of the mind games that it started to pull on both of them, without losing the perspective of the original storyline. So I thought it was fairly well crafted. It was pretty tight, and I gave it a 17 out of 25 points. The intent, the intent of this one was more to have that level of mind game for the audience and character study of these 2 principal characters and their interaction with one another. And I thought that it did it very well. I gave it an 18 out of 25. Now, I do have to say, does this movie ask more questions than it answers? Absolutely. I do hear that it has a tie-in with a movie, The Endless, that may answer some more. I haven't seen that yet. I actually have that scheduled to watch on the October 20th. I host for family and friends a 24-hour horror movie marathon, and actually we're going to be reviewing The Endless on October 27th at the 4-hour live stream live at Alfred University from noon to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on this channel. Be sure to tune in. But regardless, just standing on its own merit, resolution, without any other aspect to it, it definitely asks more questions than it answers, which could be an infuriating thing. But there is a big difference between a movie that is purposefully asking unanswered questions. I mean, even taking the fact that they, I guess, knew they were making the other movie aside, let's just assume that this is a contained bubble and this movie would never have any answers to it. I think there's a big difference between purposefully establishing that and accidentally leaving loose ends due to writing or editing or whatever. And it felt like everything this movie was doing was purposeful. And I like that. I don't necessarily need everything, tied up with a nice bow on it and all my questions answered. If the movie seems to know, you're supposed to leave this unanswered so that the mind will, the audience will continue thinking about it, will continue hypothesizing about it. They'll hit the forums, they'll talk back and forth about it. It raises that level of conversation when they're finished. I genuinely enjoy that. I thought Mother was a fantastic example of that. The conversations and scouring of forums and so forth that I went through with that movie was incredible. And I think this one is not necessarily in the same category as Mother, definitely. But it follows that same suit. And so I gave The Intent 18 out of 25. I thought ultimately it was a really great movie about these two characters. The level of mind games that it played and the level of questions that it did answer was very satisfying. And the level of questions that it didn't answer to keep my mind reeling about it afterward was very good. The acting, I said this in yesterday's review about Dark Song. When you have a movie that is principally just two characters isolated in an environment together, it is critical that the acting be on point and that the chemistry between the characters absolutely be there. And Peter Cicella and Vinnie Curran as Michael and Chris, respectively, did a very, very respectable job. Very good acting job. I'm not going to say phenomenal. Chris was a little bit one note, but I mean that was just kind of ultimately what the character was supposed to be. He was a druggie that was without his drugs, and it was supposed to be, where's my drugs? He pulled that off very well, and the level of range that he brought to the detox process was good. Michael he was kind of your straight man, your everyman kind of part of the duo there. And I thought he pulled that off well. They did get through to some points of some, personal revelations and some introspections, especially towards the end, that I thought were actually, sold me pretty well. And the supporting cast also did a very good job of this. I gave the acting a 19 out of 25 points. Ultimately, very good. And the technical, I gave an 18 out of 25. Had really good camera work to it. The detox aspect of this, I thought the accuracy of it was pretty good. Probably a little bit toned down to reality. I think they could have gone more brutal with it. And I was going to complain about the timeline being off on it because honestly, 7 days, you're not going to get all the chemicals out of a person's system. If we're talking about meth and crack and so forth, that they are going to be able to make a rational decision at the end of those 7 days that they can choose, in their best interest. But I'm not going to mark that down just because that was not the writers or the director or, it was not the plot. It was Michael's idea of what should be happening. So it was character being misguided, not the movie being misguided. I'm not going to knock that down on the technical score. So, but the, what effects there worked well. This movie did not work on a jump scare level. It wasn't trying to work on a jump scare level. It was trying to work on a WTF, on a creep factor, on this person is a little bit off and we're not quite sure how, and let's take that and ramp it up. And I think that worked extraordinarily well. So all the technical aspects of that, of the editing and the camera work and the decisions that were made surrounding that on the technical aspect, I thought worked really, really well. So it brought the creep factor, which can be a difficult thing to pull off, and it pulled it off in a way that the question of might there be something going on shifting to there is something going on, it took a long time to get there. And the technical aspect of that is one of those ways that I really love this movie is, you didn't, as the audience member, along with the characters, weren't sure that something was actually going on outside of just, maybe some drug dealers' malfeasance. What is actually happening here. And it took a long time to get there, and I really, really liked that. So, technical, 18 out of 25. That gives us a total of 72 out of 100 points. I do recommend this movie. I did enjoy it. It was a fantastic character study. It was a fantastic mind game. It's not going to answer all your questions, but that's not the point of it. The point of it is to be thinking about it afterward. And this movie has me doing that. It has me thinking a lot about it afterward, in the most enjoyable sense, as opposed to they left loose ends and I'm never going to get resolution to this. Well, to resolution. I do feel like the movie, even though it had points of thought afterward, it did tidy things up, and it did feel like a complete contained movie. So I did enjoy it. I look forward to watching The Endless, just to see how the things wrap up around that. But yeah, that's pretty much where I landed with this one. I thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.